If you've never had your world upended by a slip of paper, let me tell you, it's not the sudden, spectacular moments that haunt you. It's the quiet ones. The moments that arrive with no fanfare, in the middle of a Thursday you'd otherwise forget, and root themselves so deep in your mind that you spend the rest of your life trying to unearth them. That Thursday was so ordinary it felt almost staged. I woke up alone in my tidy little house on the east side of Spokane, the kind of neighborhood that's respectable, quiet, dull in all the ways that promise safety. I made coffee. I watered the plants. I read the news and tried not to think about the past. Tried, as always, to ignore the silence Maddie left behind. The silence was the worst part. Maddie had filled up a room, a life, a world. When she vanished 8 years ago, it was like the sun setting without warning. I moved across the country hoping the darkness wouldn't follow. But it did, in every reflective surface, every moment I let myself remember. Some days I could almost convince myself she never existed, that the whole thing was a fever dream. And then the note came. It was folded in my mailbox, no envelope, almost camouflaged among the flyers and bills. If it had been a bill, if it had been a grocery list or a coupon, none of this would have happened. But when I unfolded it, the world shifted beneath my feet. I miss you. Do you still live here? The handwriting. Maddie's handwriting. Instantly familiar, looping letters, that I dotted with a faint heart, the kind of feminine script that made even her lecture notes look like love letters. I stared at it so long the world outside went blurry. My hands shook. For a while, I just stood on the porch, clutching the note, unable to move, unable to think. The street was the same as always, kids' bikes in driveways, neighbors' cars parked perfectly in their spots, Mr. Stetson across the street mowing his lawn. It was the kind of place where everyone waved, no one really talked, and nothing ever happened. But suddenly, I felt like everyone was watching me. Like Maddie was watching me. My first reaction was denial. There must be a logical explanation, I thought. Some sick prank. Maybe an old college friend visiting town, trying to be funny. But the longer I stared at the note, the less sense it made. The more the world tilted. Maddie had left me notes like this all through college on my dorm door, in my books, sometimes even tucked into my pockets when I wasn't paying attention. But Maddie was gone. Officially missing. No trail, no closure. That night, sleep was a foreign concept. The note sat on my kitchen table, glaring up at me with every flicker of the overhead light. I pulled out a shoebox from the closet, dug through old cards and letters, and compared every curve of every letter. It was Maddie. No doubt. I remembered the last time I'd seen her handwriting, the birthday card she gave me a week before she vanished. Hope you're not too old for adventures, she'd written, drawing a smiley face that looked suspiciously like me with bedhead. She'd signed it with a heart, like always. That year was a blur, the search parties, the vigils, the news stories with Maddie's face plastered everywhere. Her parents' desperate pleas. My guilt, gnawing at me every day. Everyone moved on. I moved away. But this note dragged it all back. Like a hand reaching from the grave. The next morning, after a night spent staring at the ceiling, I checked the mailbox again. At first, nothing, just bills and ads. I almost breathed a sigh of relief. Maybe I'd imagined it. Maybe the note was an old one, lost in a pile, only now making its way to me. But taped underneath the mailbox lid, carefully hidden, was a second note. I saw you at the grocery store. You looked the same. My stomach dropped. I hadn't been to the grocery store in days. I racked my brain for any time I might have run into someone familiar, but there was nothing. No odd glances, no strange encounters. It didn't make sense. I tried to laugh it off. Maybe someone was messing with me, someone from college who'd heard about Maddie and wanted to see how far they could push me. But no one I knew from those years even lived in Washington anymore. And who else would know about Maddie's handwriting? Who else would remember those details? I set the note down beside the first, feeling the world close in. That weekend, sleep was impossible. Every creak of the house, every gust of wind against the windows, felt loaded with intent. I started closing my blinds, double-checking locks, living in the eerie half-light of paranoia. And then, the shadows. Around 2 a.m., I began to catch glimpses of a figure standing at the edge of my driveway. Always still, always silent. At first, I thought it was paranoia, sleep deprivation conjuring shapes from the darkness. But every night, the figure returned. Tall, slim, long hair hanging loose over a pale coat. On Sunday, I finally cracked. I crept to the front window and peeked through the blinds. The figure was there. Not looking at the house. Just standing, as if waiting for something. When I finally gathered enough courage to open the door, there was no one. The night was empty, silent. But on top of my mailbox was a third note. Don't pretend you don't see me. I didn't sleep at all after that. By Monday, I was a wreck. I couldn't focus at work. My boss left me a voicemail asking if everything was okay. I deleted it without listening. Every time I looked out the window, I half expected to see Maddie, or the woman pretending to be Maddie, waiting for me. I started carrying the notes with me, unable to let them out of my sight. I kept searching for evidence they were fakes, for any sign I was being pranked. But the handwriting was perfect. The little flourishes, the curves of the letters, the tiny hearts. I considered calling the police, but what could I say? My missing girlfriend is sending me notes from the afterlife. I'd sound insane. And yet, the sense of her presence, her absence, her memory wrapped around me like a shroud. It was as if she'd never left, as if she was just out of reach, just beyond the corner of my vision. The fourth note was wedged into the edge of my storm door. I almost missed it, hidden in the seam. Just one line, but it hit harder than the rest. You stopped looking for me. My chest constricted. It was true. After the first frantic months, I had stopped. I'd gone through the motions, attending vigils, posting flyers, wearing the ribbon. But over time, the search faded. The campus moved on, her parents moved states, and I ran across the country, chasing a fresh start I never really found. Guilt is a strange beast. It slumbers, it waits, and then something, a note, a word, a memory wakes it up, and it devours you all over again. That night, I did something I hadn't done in years. I dug out an old external hard drive, one I'd kept buried in my desk. Hundreds of photos, videos, fragments of a happier time. I watched them in the dark, searching for clues, as if the answer to everything might be hiding in a grainy image. One video stood out. Maddie had filmed me outside our dorm, her laughter bright behind the camera. She teased, as always. Say something dumb for future you, she giggled. I rolled my eyes, mumbled something sarcastic. And then, as the video was ending, she said softly, if I go missing, will you come find me? I laughed it off in the video. But now, years later, that question felt like a curse. I replayed the clip again and again, hoping to spot something new. I barely noticed the sun setting, the hours slipping by. The house was quiet, the air thick with memory. Then, a shadow moved outside. The shape at the edge of the yard, still and silent. This time, she stepped forward just one step and raised her hand, palm out, as if to stop me, or maybe reach for me. I didn't move. I didn't even breathe. I just watched as she slowly backed away, disappearing into the darkness. The next morning, the fifth note was already waiting. You promised. My hands shook as I read it. I was trapped by guilt, by memory, by the impossible return of a girl who shouldn't be able to reach me at all. For days, I barely left the house. I called in sick, ignored friends' texts, let dishes pile up in the sink. My world shrank to the size of a living room, a mailbox, a handful of notes. I kept hearing Maddie's voice in my head, "Will you come find me?" By Wednesday, I couldn't take it anymore. The paralysis broke, replaced by a frantic need to do something, anything to make it stop. I drove to the police station, clutching the notes like evidence in a murder trial. The officer at the front desk was polite but baffled. "That case went cold 8 years ago," he said. "I dated her," I replied. "Back then. I got some notes." He looked at me with a mixture of pity and skepticism, as if I were just another sad soul lost in grief. He took copies of the notes, promised someone might follow up, but I could tell nothing would come of it. That night, I drank too much and sat on the porch, facing the street, waiting for her. Around 1:30 a.m., she appeared. Same silhouette, same long hair, standing under the streetlight, not moving. This time, I forced myself to stand step by slow step. I walked down the driveway, heart pounding, mouth dry. "Maddie," I called. No answer. Only silence. "What do you want from me?" My voice cracked, echoing into the darkness. She took a few slow steps forward, then let something fall to the ground, a piece of paper, fluttering between us. I waited until she was gone before I picked it up. "You're getting close. Don't stop now." The next morning, I woke up in a haze of dread and hope, clutching the latest note. For the first time, I felt something shift, not just fear, but possibility. Was she reaching out to help me solve her disappearance, or was she punishing me for leaving her behind? Either way, I couldn't stop. I wouldn't. Not now. I picked up the phone, heart pounding, and dialed a number I hadn't called in years. Maddie's mother answered. The phone rang and rang. I nearly hung up. The line clicked, and a tired voice answered. "Hello." For a moment, my tongue wouldn't work. I was 16 again, calling Maddie's house to ask for her help on a class project, sweating through my shirt, fumbling for words. But the years had scraped the cheer from her mother's voice. She sounded older, brittle. It's me. I used to. I know who you are," she said. I heard the caution, the exhaustion that comes from hoping too long. I explained, in as few words as possible, about the notes. The handwriting. The sightings. I waited for laughter or anger. Instead, silence. "You're not the first to say that," she said finally, voice cracking. You've seen her." I hesitated. "I don't know. Maybe." She exhaled a raw, sad sound. "We get notes, too. We've kept them all. Always her handwriting. Always from different towns. We tried everything. Police. Handwriting experts. Psychics." She gave a bitter little laugh. "No one believes us." Her husband got on the line. His voice was steadier, but no less wounded. "You said you got a new note." "Yes. It said, 'You're getting close. Don't stop now.'" There was a pause, as if he was struggling to breathe. "We get things like that too," he admitted. "Some say, 'Almost there,' or 'I remember you.' Most just say, 'Nothing at all. Just blank paper.' But they're always in her hand." A strange kinship flickered to life, two families haunted by the same shadow. I asked, voice trembling, "Did Maddie ever say anything to you? About going missing? About leaving signs behind?" Her mother was silent for a long time. She always joked she was afraid of being forgotten. Said if she ever went missing, She'd leave breadcrumbs so we'd always know she was out there. I hung up feeling both lighter and heavier. I wasn't crazy. Or at least, I wasn't alone. Maddie's family was haunted too. I spent the next few days piecing together everything I could remember about her. Old messages, emails, social media posts from before the algorithms buried them beneath a decade of forgetfulness. I rewatched that video of her in the dorm, replaying her final, soft words. "If I go missing, will you come find me?" Somewhere, a line had been crossed. The past was bleeding into the present, and I had no idea what the rules were anymore. I took the notes to a local handwriting expert. She studied them, lips pursed. "It's a perfect match," she said finally. "But, the paper's new. The ink's new. These are recent." She shook her head. "You say the writer's been missing for 8 years. I nodded. "Well, either this is a world-class forgery, or someone wants you to think she's still here." It didn't help. If anything, it made things worse. Was Maddie alive, taunting us? Or had grief and guilt manifested themselves as these supernatural breadcrumbs? I even posted anonymously online, looking for advice. Most people mocked me, or tried to sell me crystals and ghost hunting gear. A few, though, shared similar stories: mysterious notes, lost loved ones, unresolved cases. One rainy night, after another round of sleepless pacing, I found the 6th note. Tucked inside a library book I hadn't opened in years, one Maddie had given me back in college. I opened it, and there it was, as if she'd just left it. "I'm still here. Please don't forget me." I broke. For the first time in years, I sobbed. Not the clean, cinematic kind of tears, but the messy, snotty, heaving kind that empties you out. I dreamt of Maddie that night, her laugh echoing in empty hallways, her silhouette flickering just out of reach. She always turned away before I could catch her. I drove to our old college. The campus had changed, but the dorm was still there, looming in red brick. I stood outside the door where she'd left me her first note all those years ago. A security guard asked if I needed help. I said I was visiting, just passing through. Inside, the hallway felt colder, tighter. I closed my eyes and tried to remember every detail: the way Maddie used to lean against the wall, her backpack slung carelessly over one shoulder, the way she would write her notes and slip them under my door. I found her old room now empty, the door covered in a new coat of paint. I slid one of her notes underneath, then just stood there, waiting for, what, exactly? A sign? Forgiveness? Release? But the only reply was silence. A week later, Maddie's mother called me. "I found something," she said quietly. "You should come." Their house was smaller than I remembered, cluttered with fading photos and unopened mail. Her parents looked frail, older than I expected. They handed me a shoebox. "We kept all the notes," her mom explained. "Sometimes we get 2 in a week. Sometimes months go by." I rifled through hundreds of scraps. Some were blank, some had Maddie's handwriting, others were half smudged, almost frantic. One, dated last year, said, "I'm waiting." Another, "Please keep looking." Her father watched me, eyes red-rimmed. "Do you believe in ghosts?" he asked suddenly. I hesitated. "I don't know what I believe anymore." He nodded, as if that was the only answer he expected. The 7th note, a final plea. When I got home, I found another note taped to my front door. My hands shook as I peeled it off. "Please. I need you to see me." There was a chill in the air, a heaviness that pressed on my chest. I was certain, utterly certain, that tonight would be the night. The last encounter. I waited. The neighborhood was silent, the street lights painting long shadows on wet pavement. At exactly 2 a.m., the figure appeared again at the edge of the driveway. For the first time, I stepped outside without fear. I walked toward her. She stood still, head bowed, hair hiding her face. I spoke, voice barely above a whisper. "Maddie. I'm here." She lifted her head slowly. Her eyes dark, wounded, endlessly sad met mine. For a moment, the world stopped. "I'm sorry," I said. I never stopped looking. I tried to forget, but I couldn't. Not really. She didn't speak. She just handed me a folded note. Her hand was cold as winter, as insubstantial as fog. "Thank you for not forgetting me." I blinked, and she was gone. Just like that. The air felt lighter. My chest loosened, as if a weight had been lifted. The note stopped after that. Not abruptly, but gradually. I'd wake up expecting to find one, and instead there would only be the day. No more shapes at the end of the driveway. No more letters in Maddie's hand. I kept them all, every note, every scrap of hope and grief. Sometimes, when I couldn't sleep, I'd reread them. Not as evidence, but as a record of something real, something that happened to me, even if no one else could ever believe it. I still dream of her sometimes. Sometimes she's laughing, sometimes she's crying, sometimes she's just standing at the end of a hallway that never ends. But the guilt, the unbearable guilt, has faded. In its place is something quieter. Not peace, exactly, but acceptance. A sense that the past can't always be fixed, but it can be honored. People will tell you to move on, to forget. But the truth is, the past never leaves us. It waits, patient, just beyond the reach of the present. Sometimes, it sends messages, reminders to keep searching, to keep hoping, to remember. Was Maddie a ghost? A memory? The last spark of hope that refused to die? I don't know. But I do know this. Some promises matter more than answers. Some stories will never have an ending. If you're haunted by someone you've lost, by guilt, by regret, by love, maybe the best you can do is keep looking. Keep remembering. Never let go completely. Because somewhere, someone is waiting for you to remember. You'd never expect anything sinister in a neighborhood like mine. My street in Willow Creek was lined with maple trees, their leaves whispering secrets in the evening wind. Lawns were neatly trimmed, every house painted some flavor of beige or pale blue, and mailboxes bore the same hand-stenciled numbers. If you drove down this street at dusk, you'd see families grilling dinner, old couples watering petunias, kids racing bikes until the last bit of sunlight slipped away. On paper, it was paradise's starter family dream. But paradise is only skin deep. Beneath the perfect surface, shadows twist and coil. I'd moved here the previous winter, after a messy breakup and a job transfer that felt more like an exile. I brought only the essentials: a bed, a coffee maker, some threadbare furniture, and Max, my rescue mud with wise brown eyes and the kind of loyalty you only get from a creature that's seen the world's dark corners. Max was my anchor. He kept me on schedule, got me out of bed, forced me to take walks when the pull of the couch and a bottle of whiskey got too strong. He was a silent companion, always at my side. In a way, he was the only reason I noticed when things began to change. It started on a Tuesday. I came home from a long day of deliveries, boxes, groceries, odds and ends for people too busy or tired to run their own errands. My back ached, and the only thing on my mind was reheating leftovers. Max met me at the door, tail wagging, eyes bright. But there was something clenched in his jaws: a battered toy car, red paint chipped away, wheels scuffed, its plastic windshield cracked right through the center. At first, I assumed it was his latest find from the yard. Max was a champion scrounger. But when I tried to take it from him, he laid it gently at my feet, then sat, tail thumping, gaze fixed on the door as if waiting for approval or maybe something else. I shrugged, tossed the toy in his bin with the others, and went about my evening. But that night, as I settled in with a lukewarm meal, I found myself glancing at the toy more than once. It felt out of place. Old. Heavy, somehow. I told myself it was nothing. But the next day, there was another toy, this time, a small green army man, battered and faded, with the word Jamie scribbled in marker on the back. Over the next week, the toys kept coming. Max brought them to the door each morning, dropping them at my feet with the solemnity of a priest laying offerings at an altar. Each toy was different: a doll's shoe, a tiny rubber dinosaur, a plastic ring, a cracked yo-yo. All worn, all dirty, all clearly old. I tried to laugh it off at first. Maybe some neighborhood kid had lost a bag of toys and Max had found their trail. But there were no small children on my block. The youngest family lived 2 streets over, and their kids were too old for plastic dinosaurs. Every time I tried to ignore the growing collection, Max made it impossible. He'd whine at the door, paw at the threshold, insist on walking up and down the block as if searching for someone I couldn't see. After a week, my front hallway looked like the aftermath of a garage sale. And Max still wasn't satisfied. It was during this strange new ritual that I first heard Jamie's name. It happened in the most suburban way possible at the mailbox, while flipping through bills and circulars. Mrs. Bennett, my next door neighbor, leaned over the fence, voice low. "Strange, isn't it? Seeing you with all those toys." I forced a smile. "Yeah, my dog has a nose for lost junk." She didn't smile back. Her eyes darted to the house across the street, its windows shuttered, lawn wild. "You know about the boy who used to live there?" she asked. I shook my head, more curious than I wanted to admit. "Jamie Carlson. Sweet kid. Disappeared last summer. Police said he wandered off, but, well, you never know." She shrugged, eyes haunted. "Some folks say you can still hear his mom calling for him at night." I felt a chill, sudden and irrational. I wanted to ask more, but Mrs. Bennett was already backing away, retreating into the safety of routine. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Jamie's name echoed in my mind. Was it just a coincidence that Max had found those toys? Or was there something else at work here, something deeper and darker than the surface calm of Willow Creek? 5. Max's instincts. Dogs know things we don't. They see the world in colors and scents and vibrations. Max, especially, seemed to sense things before they happened. When I was anxious, he'd press his head against my leg. When a storm was coming, he'd pace the hallway, restless, ears twitching. Now, he was obsessed with the toys. Some mornings he'd sit by the front door, staring out into the fog, whining low in his throat. If I tried to distract him, he'd lead me outside, nose to the ground, tracing invisible trails through the grass. One afternoon, as golden hour bathed the neighborhood in honeyed light, Max bolted down the block, leash snapping taut. I followed, stumbling, cursing under my breath. He led me straight to the overgrown yard across the street, the Carlson house. The place looked abandoned. Paint peeling, windows smudged, weeds overtaking the front steps. Max circled the yard, sniffing every corner, then stopped by the rusted gate leading to the backyard. He sat. Waited. Looked up at me, expectant. My heart pounded. "All right, boy," I muttered. "Let's see what you've found." The backyard was a wilderness. Thistles, dandelions, and wild morning glories tangled around broken toys, a toppled lawn chair, the remnants of what had once been a swing set. The chains creaked in the breeze, a lonely, metallic sound that raised goosebumps on my arms. Max padded forward, nose twitching. He stopped beside the swings and dropped his latest find, a battered plastic soldier at the base of the rusted frame. I knelt beside him. There was something odd about the ground here, a patch of dirt that looked freshly disturbed, as if someone had dug there recently and tried to cover their tracks. My hands hesitated. Digging felt invasive, like crossing some invisible line. But Max whined, nudging me forward. I dug, hands clawing through damp earth. A few inches down, my fingers struck something hard. It was a wooden box, small, weathered, its paint flaking away. The hinges protested as I pried it open. Inside were toys, a marble, a plastic dinosaur, a matchbox car. And underneath, folded notes, stained and crumpled. The handwriting was uneven. Some in blocky, childish scrawl. Others in a trembling, adult hand. My heart thudded as I read the messages. Please don't forget me. I'm still here. One, written in shaky adult script, broke me. I'm sorry I couldn't keep you safe. I sat on the porch steps, Max pressed against my side, reading the notes one by one. There was something desperate in the words, a need to be remembered, a cry for connection that cut through the years. Some notes were simple lists: my favorite color is red. Max is the best dog. Others were fragments: scared, hiding, come find me. The adult notes were harder to decipher. Apologies, confessions, fragments of prayers. I wondered, was this Jamie's way of reaching out, or a parent's attempt to hold on to a child already gone? Was it both? For the first time, the reality of loss hit me. This wasn't just a missing child case. It was a family's heartbreak, preserved in ink and dirt, buried beneath the playthings of a stolen childhood. Word spread, as it always does in places like Willow Creek. I brought the box and the notes to a local community meeting. Jamie's parents were there, faces drawn and hollow, eyes too old for their years. When I showed them the toys and notes, his mother burst into tears. His father squeezed my hand, grip like iron. We did everything we could, he whispered. But Jamie, he was always wandering off. Adventurous. The police think he just ran away. But I know better. He glanced around the room, voice dropping to a whisper. People say there was a neighbor, Mr. Price. He disappeared the same week as Jamie. No one talks about it. But there's a darkness here. His words hung in the air, heavy as thunder. That night, sleep wouldn't come. I kept thinking about Jamie, about the box of toys, about the neighbor who'd vanished without a trace. Max lay at my feet, snoring softly, but even in his dreams he seemed tense, ears twitching, paws flexing. Just after midnight, I heard it, a faint, metallic creak. The swing set, moving in the wind. Or was it something else? I got up, heart racing, and crossed to the window. The yard was empty. Only shadows moved. But for a moment, I thought I saw a small figure standing by the swings. Watching. Waiting. Compelled by fear and curiosity, I returned to the Carlson yard at dawn. Max led me to the same patch of earth behind the swings. This time, I dug deeper, hands numb and clumsy. My fingers brushed metal, a small tin box, rusted and cool to the touch. Inside, a faded photograph. Jamie, grinning, arm slung around a shaggy dog that could have been Max's twin. Beside it, a small key, unmarked. I turned the photo over. Scrawled in blue ink, for Max. For when I come home. I sat in the morning light, photo in one hand, key in the other, and felt the weight of unfinished business settle on my shoulders. Somewhere, Jamie was still waiting to come home. And Max, faithful, patient Max, was still searching. Whatever this key opened, I knew it was only the beginning. For days, the small, unmarked key never left my pocket. Its cold weight was a constant reminder: unfinished business, a whisper from the past urging me on. Max became even more restless, nudging my hand whenever I touched the key, whining at the door each time a new day dawned gray and anxious. He knew better than I did that this wasn't over. I scoured the house for anything that could fit the key, old lock boxes, a rusty padlock on the backyard shed, even the gate leading to the woods. Nothing clicked. It felt like another dead end until I remembered the rumor, barely more than a ghost story, about Mr. Price, the neighbor who'd vanished the same week as Jamie. What if? I grabbed a flashlight, the key, and Max's leash. The abandoned Price house stood at the edge of the neighborhood, half swallowed by overgrown ivy. Every window was caked with grime. As I circled to the back, Max let out a low, uncertain growl more anxious than hostile. Half buried behind a collapsed compost bin was an old toolbox, its paint almost gone. My hands shook as I slipped the key into the tiny lock. With a quiet click, it opened. Inside, more faded photos of Jamie, some alone, some with Mr. Price, some with other kids. A tiny plastic sheriff's badge, rusted. A folded note, nearly illegible. I read it under the weak beam of my flashlight. For whoever finds this. If you're reading, it means you still care. I tried to protect Jamie, but I was too late. Don't let them forget him. R.P. A cold wave of realization hit me. Mr. Price hadn't just vanished, he'd tried to help Jamie. Or maybe he'd seen something the rest of us were too blind, or too scared, to notice. I carried the box home, mind racing. Why hide these things? Was Price guilty, or another victim of whatever haunted our neighborhood? That night, my dreams were thick with shadows and flickering images. Jamie's face, smiling in one moment, vanishing in the next. Max barking at invisible shapes. The swing set creaking, 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 until I woke with my heart pounding. In the morning, I called the local police. The case had been cold for so long I expected nothing. The officer listened politely, then promised to take a look, the phrase people use when they want to be rid of you. But I had to try. Jamie's parents came by that afternoon. They looked different, tired, yes, but there was a fragile hope in their eyes. I showed them the toolbox, the badge, the note. Jamie's mom traced the photos with shaking fingers. He loved that badge, she whispered, half laughing, half sobbing. He wanted to be a sheriff. Said he'd protect all the animals and kids in the world. His father stood silent for a long time, then finally spoke. We thought we were alone. I thought we'd been forgotten. Max laid his head on Jamie's mother's lap, and for a moment, the room felt lighter, as if the shadows had drawn back, just a little. But not all stories end with peace. The toys kept appearing on my porch, even after I'd locked the box away. Sometimes, late at night, I'd see Max stand at the window, tail low, ears alert, watching the Carlson house across the street. One misty night, I followed his gaze. In the pale glow of the street lamp, I thought I saw a child's figure on the swing, moving slowly back and forth, eyes searching, always searching. I stepped outside, heart pounding. The air was thick, expectant. Jamie. I called, voice trembling. The swing creaked to a stop. The figure turned just for a heartbeat. I glimpsed a smile, a flash of familiar eyes. And then it was gone. Only the empty swing, swaying in the night breeze. Max whined softly and leaned against my leg. We waited in the silence, honoring the space where past and present still touched. In the weeks that followed, life slowly found its shape again. Jamie's parents began tending their garden. Mrs. Bennett started waving from her porch. The Carlson house stayed empty, but sometimes, on the breeze, I heard the distant sound of laughter, real, or imagined, I could never decide. I kept the tin box and the toolbox on a shelf, side by side, small memorials to a story that would never have a neat ending. Sometimes, when I felt the weight of the world, I'd sit with Max on the porch, letting the memory of Jamie and the other lost children I'd never know keep us company in the quiet. There were still nights when toys appeared at my door, and sometimes I'd find a marble or a plastic badge left on the path outside the Price house, as if the neighborhood itself was trying to remember. People ask me, sometimes, why I keep the toys, why I let Max lead me into the shadows of old memories. Because someone has to remember, I always answer. Because stories don't die unless we let them. Because justice, or peace, or forgiveness, whatever we seek, starts with refusing to look away. Max is older now. His muzzle is gray, his walk's a little slower. But on quiet afternoons, he'll still nudge a toy into my lap, tail wagging, as if reminding me that we're all searching for something, and sometimes, the best thing we can do is simply keep searching. Some say the dead haunt the places they loved. Some say children lost too soon leave echoes, laughter in empty yards, the squeak of a swing set on a windless night, the flash of a red toy car under the hedge. I don't know if Jamie is out there, or if he found peace. But every time Max pauses on our evening walks, staring into the dusk, I remember the lesson he taught me. Animals see what we ignore. Children are never as lost as we fear. And sometimes, love itself is the bridge that brings forgotten stories home. Not every mystery is meant to be solved. Some wounds will always ache, and some memories will always flicker on the edge of dusk. But as long as someone remembers, someone cares, the past will never truly disappear. So if you ever find a forgotten toy, or hear a dog barking in the night, or see a shadow by the old swing set, pause. Listen. Someone might be reaching out from the silence, asking not to be forgotten. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough.